So I'm going to be primarily discussing what I was responsible for. And basically, each function builds off the past function. So this read file function is what works with any file. Why we wanted to work with file name parameter is because we want any text file to work and be universally usable. So the file is the variable and the file name is the parameter. So file name, which will be identified in the getCommons function below, the file is opening the text document. The data function, that means, the data variable is reading the file, which is the variable we are setting for the file name. And then the file is closing. Because we want to make sure the text file is closed, it just takes up like too much extra memory, so we don't want to leave that open. And then returning, of course, that data, which is reading the file. So the next common function is, well, as I said, basically reading that file through the data function, through the data variable, and splitting that words up individually through the data split. And we are returning those individual words in our list. This works as, obviously, our list. And then we're going to basically go for our function, which is, again, calling the past function with the text file being read and changed into our list. And we are starting the count from 0. There is one loop that we are going through, and it iterates through the words in the passage that the user will input. If one of these words is in the list of high frequency words in our list, then we add one to the count and return that total count. So for the percentage, in this function, we are taking the total count of high frequency words, see how it's building upon everything, and then we are dividing by the total number of words and to get that percentage with the return. So now we're cleaning everything up. So there are a number of functions that do this, that work on each other, of course. So def clean func passage. In this function, we are replacing all the lines with a space to clean everything up. Def clean. This is making all the words lowercase. It's stripping down the words to clean it up, replacing the specific quotation marks in this type of quotation mark because basically this one works in the program and this one doesn't. That's my understanding. We are removing the punctuation marks so it doesn't count it as a word. So in the for loop, if one punctuation is in the passage, it returns that cleaned word, which is, not a punctuation mark. So basically for the function clean words, we have an empty brackets because we are already working with our high frequency list above. We are appending the clean words to our list. We return the clean words again. So the total passage word count, this is obviously splitting the passage, identifying the number of words in that split passage, and then of course making sure that it's counting all of the words and doing its total count. Okay, so for our prepare passage is basically cleaning up the passage and making sure there are no unnecessary punctuation, spaces, and lines. It's calling all the other functions also. It's calling a number of other functions. So for prepare sentences, we're working with the, basically this works with our functions where it's calling the clean passage and using that function. We're able to split those sentences in that we are replacing any exclamation points or question marks with a period. This makes it easier for the program to basically identify the ending of the sentences in that user input. So now we're going average sentence length. So the sentence variable is calling the other functions that have already been cleaned. Then it is using the length of the clean sentences in the number sentences. And we are using the count from our total passage word because that's the total count of the words of the entire passage, and then returning that count divided by the length of the words, hence to get the average of that sentence length. This was Victoria's, so okay, so in main, so this is when we're communicating with the user via input of passage and title. We are calling all the functions. This is where the magic really begins. We are calling the prepare passage because it is cleaning up the entire passage. So we are working with that clean passage. Total word variable is calling the total amount of words function. High frequency total word count variable is calling the high frequency count function that we worked with above. The percentage, the high frequency total percentage, is calling the percentage of that function. The average sentence length is calling, average sen is calling the average sen length of the passage. in the print statements, as you can see here, we are using for loops and whoops, I'm sorry, it went a little too down. We are using for loops and I'm sorry, we are using f strings and calling all of our variables identified in our main function appropriately. And for the percentage and average sentence length, we are rounding to the nearest two decimal points, so it's easier for the user to understand the percentage and sentence length. And we added these extra, well, I added these extra F strings and the line N as a way to make it more aesthetically pleasing to the user and therefore easier to comprehend the information.